How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be introducing you to the ARC Placard V4. Now, the ARC Placard V4 is the latest iteration in our evolution of the ARC Placard product line. And so today we're going to be running you through all the features, the overview of it, setup, and a little bit more. So what is the ARC Placard? Well, the ARC Placard is a series of placards that our company has been offering for quite some time, and it's gone through several iterations. The very first one was pretty much a just standard, industry standard placard with clips and Velcro, but a single row of mags, essentially with MOLLE on the front. And the idea was that in a market filled with double stack, really big placards out there, we want something a little more slimmer. And that grew into the V2, which then introduced laser cut laminate and a few other features like elastic on the sides for carrying pens, tourniquets, and really added the feature of having tubes on the sides, which was a big deal for placards and our own product line with it being able to connect directly to cummerbunds. And that grew into the V3, which many of you might be more familiar with, and this allowed the pocket to expand to carry more mags, different calibers and the sort. But there were some small shortcomings here that we really wanted to dial in on it and make sure that it was not a problem for users at all. This has been a very successful product. I believe we ran it for almost 3 years straight, and overwhelmingly a huge success. But any sort of vulnerability we see, we want to get rid of that and also add features that customers have been asking for. You'll notice that none of these feature any Velcro on the front, and the V4 does. So the V4 is basically the culmination of all those lessons and user feedback to continue to make the ARC Placard line better and better each time. So why the ARC Placard V4 over other placards that are out there? Well, what we're offering essentially is a robust, expandable product that allows you to really create any of the loadouts you see here and much more with a variety of our products as well as other people's pouches and the sort. This is one of the few placards that can really expand to hold 4 mags across, 3 308 mags, 6 556 mags, and more inside of it. And that's all thanks to the expansion of the main pocket and honestly some more features that we've added that we'll go over for future chest rig integration. So the V4 is really a unique product at the end of the day, and we hope that through these features that we go through, you'll see that as well. With all that out of the way, let's get into the features, what basically make the V4 actually special. First off is its construction. It's made up of a robust, durable laminate, and that laminate continues to prove itself day in and day out as it's been in multiple conflicts and has been issued, honestly, even to military units now in certain plate carriers like the Marine Corps carrier and the Army's MSV. And so any skepticism when it comes to the laser cutting and the laminate itself is really starting to become unfounded as really it just continues to prove itself day in and day out. And the V4 is no different in that construction method. But what really makes the V4 special primarily is its expanding pocket. It is a large pocket that has shock cord on the sides that allows it to basically expand to whatever insert needs to be in there. So as we go over here, we have our 55556 in there, our 55556 and the new Spectre line of inserts in the front, meaning that this can hold 6 mags in there, our quad insert over here, and even a 308. There's a lot of other combinations with our RAM series that fits inside of this, and basically if it can fit within here, you can store it within here. The pocket itself is hook and loop, so that is the type of insert it will accept, which is pretty much all of our inserts. And on the sides is the shock cord that actually allows this pocket to fully expand and basically, contract whatever you need it to be. Once you have that in there, you tighten it down and it holds it all tight so you don't have this excess material just flapping around. It is completely stowed on the inside as it tucks in and it's out of the way. Moving on to the most noticeable feature change on the V4 is the Velcro on the front. This is purely a user requested item. Initially, our thoughts were that we wanted to make sure that the front was as slick as possible, but our customers who we listened to essentially wanted more Velcro on the front so they could do patches, but also flaps like these from Spiritus and a variety of other sort of items on the front that they might require. And so we obliged and added that here. And so we chose to do a 9-inch wide by 3-inch tall Velcro panel with 4 inches tall in the middle for taller patches, badges, and the sort that can go center line on the front. Flaps do work on it in the front, and it allows you a little bit of room to mount whatever you need to. In most cases, it might be patches, but at the end of the day, you can choose to not run anything on here at all, and it'll be out of the way. Moving internally onto the V4, one of the other super unique features that we'll honestly have to go more into detail in a future video when we go over our future chest rig options is the drop-down feature. On the inside are these flaps that go up and down and basically allow the bottom of the product to basically fully expand until the flap hits a stopping point, and that allows for a large drop-down. This serves really two purposes. One is the different heights of inserts and widths. So if you're running a double stack, you will have to drop these down about 1 inch. And if you're running a single stack, you'll have this flap go all the way to the top. But if you're running this in a future chest rig setup that we will offer, you will need this to run a military-sized radio, as you can now use a military-sized radio insert on the inside and then have the drop down go down, and this will be able to hold a 152, a 163 within the placard. This is primarily important for running a split rig, so when you have two of these put together and you want to run that radio on the inside tight to the body, you can within that cell. This is us getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but essentially in the case of just magazines, it allows for different heights and different thicknesses, as well as if you're running really tall mags and you want to drop that entire thing down a little bit, you can by equally lowering all three of these flaps down a little bit. So we'll get a little bit more into that in the setup section of this video, as well as future chest rig integration. Moving on to what you can run on the inside and outside the placard, we already went over that you can have hook and loop inserts on the inside, but on the front, you'll see that there is a ton of PALS slots all over for pouches that can be added to it. It is 10 columns wide across. Here you only see 6, and when you have it fully expanded with a quad, you see that there are 8 present. But unlike the V3, you can have still stuff mounted to the side of the quad, as there is these outer flank MOLLE slots that are fully hidden when compressed that allow you to still run side pouches like a pistol pouch, tourniquet, multi-tool. You can now do those on the quad without having it basically disappear like it did on the V3. So there is effectively 10 columns all the way around, but in most cases you won't be able to actually use all 10. For example, on this double stack setup here, you have 6 across the front and then 1 on the side, and there's a compressed 9th and 10th column there, but realistically you really won't be able to use them whenever they are in that compressed state. Along the bottom you still have MOLLE, especially on the single stack setup, that you can mount pouches as well down here. But due to the nature of the flaps, this is a little bit different setup wise. So just understand that if you're running a tourniquet pouch, something like that, it should still be able to work down here, but it might be a little bit more finicky setting up due to the nature of how these flaps are, especially if they are not uniformly set up. Moving on to the sides of the placard, the sides are very much the same as the V3, where we still have the ability to run split bar first spear tubes on the side so that this can directly integrate to your cummerbund, meaning that this flap is essentially attached with buckles, Velcro, and side connections that will prevent this from tearing up on a plate carrier or on a chest rig. Now you can still run 1-inch hardware on the top and the bottom here due to this slot right here, but we really recommend mainly going with the first spear tube connection for most applications there. But that is pretty much the same as the V3, as that feature has been really appreciated by customers, and so we've retained it to the V4. While we're looking at the rear, we can take a look at the height adjustable straps. In the past on the V3, they were one wrap Velcro that was simply sewn in, and that was economical. It worked out really well for production, and in most cases it worked out for most users. There was a small minority that found that that was a failure point in some cases, and so we've completely eliminated that by switching to a laminate construction with traditionally sewn Velcro there instead of a one-piece Velcro one wrap strap there. This means that essentially this is a bit more robust here, especially when using metal hardware, and the stitching can get a bit more thicker there, essentially more reinforced for some material science reasons when it comes to how many holes you can punch into certain materials. So that has been reinforced, but the feature is still there where you can change the height of these buckles depending on the plate carrier you are attaching it to. You can also switch these over to G-hooks if you want to run G-hooks, or really any 1-inch hardware, as this is completely swappable. Another small improvement we've made to the V4 over the V3 is the inclusion of cord locks. Essentially, you can call them cord barrels or locking barrels. We call them cord locks as that's the name of the specific type we use. But in the V3, the shock cord was really just a knot, and you had to do the knot over and over again if you want to change it. Now there's a cord lock that allows you to essentially tighten this up and then slide down the cord lock and lock it in place. You can then take this and either move the knot down and clean it up if you want to take the time to do that. You can tuck it away under a strap, tuck it into the PAL slot there, do whatever you really want with it, but this is a far easier solution for people. Something we probably should have included on the V3, but we've included it now on the V4, so it does ease user setups now. Lastly is shock cord integration. That still remains very similar to the V3, where we have this row of 1/2-inch increment slots on the backside, and then the slots over here through the MOLLE on the front. That allows you to just really run shock cord through it. Here we also have it attached to a insert, but you can run shock cord from the front to the rear of this placard, just like you could on the V3. In terms of what is compatible with the V4 from our product line, both past and current offerings, pretty much most all of them will still remain compatible with the V4 placard. That includes our PALs or MOLLE pouches, the DEP pouch for pistol mags, the ETA for tourniquets. Both of those can still run on the sides of the V4. The flex rifle mag pouch can still mount to the front of these. Both of our large and small nerd pouches can still mount to the front. And even some newer offerings like our updated rear document stacker pouches that are essentially half size and full size will be able to be ran on the inside rather than on the backside like the older RDSs. So those will still run on here, but the newer ones will run inside of the pocket here. Our full RAM line will work in here, including our Spectre certs that are newer. That'll basically just act as flat stackers there. So if you take out that front row, it'll completely lay flat, but you still have RAM in the back. That'll still work, including larger, wackier mag combinations like these Genesis 12 gauge mags in a 308 RAM. Going on to 7.62x39 will still run inside of our placards as well. And even larger SMG combinations like our quintuple SMG large or our sextuple SMG smalls will still run in the V4 along with other inserts. So you can basically create larger setups that fit your mission profile. We'll now go into setting up the ARC Placard V4 for those who are unacquainted with how to run inserts or just want to figure out a better way to do it. We're going to start off with how to insert a single stack insert there, and then we'll move on to showing a double stack and some more stuff. So like most industry placards, you're just going to open this guy up, take 2 shims. You can make these out of cardboard, they don't have to be fancy. Get them on both sides of there. Take your insert. I would put the mags inside first, and the reason for that is the Velcro will lay differently than when it's empty, right? So if you have mags in there, everything will get spaced out the way it ought to be, and then you can insert in there, and now the cells will stay open in that configuration. This really applies to most inserts out there on the market anyway. Get that fully in there. Make sure it's fully seated in there. And then also take a second to look and see, are your mags actually centered the way you want them to be? It might from the top look centered, but then you look at it and it's cattywampus one way or another. But once you have that exactly where you want, you'll want to make sure that the Velcro is level at the top with both of them, so you don't have a lot of Velcro not being connected. And then you will pull your insert out so that it is flush right there. And then you can simply do the same thing on the back. Pull that guy out, close it up. And on the V4, you will then inspect the sides of the material and then make sure, hey, do I need to crank down on the shock cord at all to fully compress the package? What I like to do is take my fingers and push in on any excess so it folds behind the magazine over there. And then you can tighten down the shock cord, move the cord lock down, do the same thing to the other side. Try to really keep them even. You don't want to crank one side down too hard and then the other side not a lot, and now it ends up shifting the load. And you're pretty much done with that. If you have a really long shock cord piece, you could choose to either lay it down there or pass it under one of these PAL slots over here until the knot pops out on the other side. And now that is stowed, and then you put that behind the load there. So that is how you insert a single stack. One important note is that the drop-down tabs that you find on the back should be at the top of the Velcro or close to it for the single stack, as the drop-down is only going to create a lower bottom, so the mags might end up descending too far low. So just one important thing to note with the drop-down tabs. Moving on from the single stack, we're going to move into how to install the double stack, as there might be a little bit more steps to this. The first thing you're going to want to do is loosen up any shock cord you have tightened down. Just get that all the way there, as you will need the majority of the stretch for this. Next thing you're going to do is take these drop down tabs and you're going to move them basically about 1 inch down from the top Velcro edge. So It doesn't have to be a full inch, as the mags themselves are not a full inch in width. They're pretty close, but not all the way there. You're basically just going to lower these guys, make them all uniform to each other, like that. On the flanks, you should try to get them to go all the way to the edge of the Velcro available there. And once you're done with that, go ahead and push them all the way down, basically pushing your fingers all the way through, and then sliding your shims in there. With that pretty much set up, we're gonna go and look at our inserts. Again, we're gonna have the mags all the way in there. Here we have a 55556 RAM, and we're gonna stack that with a Spectre on the front. And the reason for this is that once this front row is extracted of its mags, it should lay flat with the shock cord, as the shock cord will just compress the load over. We are going to stack them so that they are directly on top of each other. And this way, our gaps are uniform across the two, and we're gonna make sure that our Velcro is stacked. And so we basically have our 6 mags right here. We are then just going to open this up, drop the load in, like that. And just like before, we're going to take a look at our front, make sure that it all pretty much stacks up the way we want it to. So when we're looking at this like that, if I pull this up and I see a discrepancy, I can really just kind of massage it back into place like that. And our front is installed. We're again going to make sure that it is symmetrical, right? Especially on a 6 mags here, it really should be just across the 6 columns of PALS slots there. And on the back, we're going to do the same thing, make sure it's good. And we have a little bit of excess here that we can take care of. So again, we're basically tightening the load and then pulling the shock cord. If the shock cord is tight on any of the slots, you can just move the bits over till it moves over. The slots for the shock cord were made tight so that it doesn't balloon out of shape over time as much. So you will have noticed that it might be a little difficult when it's brand spanking new, but it's not a bad thing. And then again, with our excess, we can either choose to contain them, move the knot down and cut off the excess. It's really up to you how you want to store those things. And that is pretty much how we actually set up the double stack in here. You're going to basically do the same thing if you want to use any sort of organizer on the back side of this or the sort. The last bit of setup configuration we'll go over is the tubes and the straps. Now the straps are pretty easy. If you want to change the hardware, you're just lifting up on that, removing it and replacing it with some other piece of hardware that is 1 inch wide. But mounting tubes is a little bit more difficult. It really just comes down to finessing the loops here. So you'll take your split bar, and I like to start with my inner side first, so the inner hook, and then you just take your finger, or you can even take like a small tool, not a sharp tool or anything else like that, so you don't, tear anything. But you could even use your finger, collapse that loop right there until it gets enough to go on that hook, and it simply slides on. You'll do the same thing, again, starting with the inside, as it's far more easy to just flex the placard onto the tube itself. Get on those teeth there, and here you have the cord lock a little bit in the way. If you want, you could move the cord lock out of the way there. And again, you're collapsing the laminate till it hooks on the tooth. And you may notice that due to that slot there, the tooth might poke out, but all you'll do is simply massage it till it is out of the way. You can pull it down, pull it back up, and now our tube is perfectly mounted on there, and you simply do the same thing to the other side. If it's a 1 inch split bar buckle that you're running, it's gonna be very easy. You're just gonna hook on one side, collapse the laminate till it goes over that side, and the force pulling it on the sides will keep it from coming off those teeth. That pretty much concludes our overview of the ARC Placard V4. This will be available starting July 3rd at midnight, really July 4th, and will be available in all the colors you see here: multicam, Coyote Brown, Ranger Green, Black, Wolf Gray at launch, and over time we will add other colors based off of user demand and honestly what we want to do, because we actually enjoy launching special colors from time to time. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, DM us on Instagram, email us at customerservice@shaw-concepts.com, and we'll do the best we can to answer any of your questions, especially leading up to the launch. So thank you so much for your time, and as always, conquer all.